Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I am Mr. Warren Hayes here, and we're going to be talking about professional wrestling for a little while here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, or on your favorite podcast application. I don't know why I decided to do an accent. That was dumb. And I'm not doing this over. I've done it 2 times already. I've redone the intro twice, if you believe this. Okay, this is like the 3rd take. It's ridiculous. It's dumb. No one ever hire me for voice work. I'm terrible. Leave a like on this video if you are watching it on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on the Spotify. Helps grows the channel, gives it attention, algorithm loves it, blah, 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 blah. I think by now you know how all of this works. If you don't, well, Google it. Like, I got to move on here. I got to invite you to join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord to continue talking about pro wrestling and have a nice time with some nice people in a nice environment. Link is in the description. You can also follow me on Blue Sky. I don't plug that enough, but I'm active on Blue Sky. I like the Blue Sky. MrWarrenHayes.show is where you'll find me over there. However, as it stands for right now, well, we got a couple of big reviews in the bag here tonight. AEW Dynasty, New Japan Pro Wrestling Sakura Genesis. So we're going to be breaking down that. That's going to be the meat and potatoes of the show here tonight. Maybe a little extra topic here to get things underway, but to sort of break the ice, get into it. Get ready for some reviews. I'm excited. I love doing the reviews. I hope you enjoy the reviews. That's what we're doing here tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Let's get to it. I want to touch on the Tiffany Stratton Charlotte angle from SmackDown last week. As you know, I do not partake in the WWE unless there's something of general interest that happens, such as people shooting on each other. And that's what I started seeing going around, of course, on Blue Sky, in the haunts, in the Discord. You should join the Discord, by the way. Link is in the description. And I was going around looking at all of that, and people were like, oh, they're shooting. And I'm like, oh, come on now, shooting. They're not. It's WWE. What are we doing, right? So I end up watching it over the weekend. I decide, I'm like, okay, I'm going to let me hunker down here. Let's take a look at Charlotte and Tiffany shooting at each other. And holy smokes. That was terrific. Like, they were clearly off script. Like, I even before it started getting reported, when, Fightful Select started reporting that apparently they went way off script and all this stuff. And I'm like, you could tell for multiple reasons. And I think the main reason you could tell that they were off script is how uncomfortable Charlotte was in this situation, because she was not expecting to get any pushback. And I can respect Tiffany Stratton deciding to go, after Charlotte, give her a little receipt after Charlotte ate her alive at that one promo that they did a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, which again, people sent me and were telling me, oh my God, Warren, check this out. It's like fucking Charlotte just, she's went completely off. I mean, it was, impressive at how bad Tiffany Stratton had been devoured by Charlotte. Like, Tiffany, still a fair rookie on the main roster, doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. She realizes the spot she's in. She's got the championship. She's one of not many people that has a singles match at WrestleMania this year. She understands the spot that she's in, and she's like, she doesn't want to ruffle any feathers, So Charlotte just lays into her, because Charlotte's been doing this for forever. And her attitude is, well, what are they going to do? Fire me? Right? And So, she decides to go rogue a little bit on her, and Tiffany, well, her inexperience shows, and that's what it is. Comes back on Friday, and Tiffany was like, she was pacing this entire, the entire promo. Like, she was burning and bubbling. She was like, we're going to do this. You could tell she was antsy. She had some stuff to say. And I think Charlotte was the first to go off script, but Tiffany was ready. Tiffany was like, no way. No way. Not this time, ma'am. I'm coming for you. And boy, oh fucking boy, did she swing. She swang. Look, was it a good promo? No. It was not good. It was not good, but they were completely out of they were completely out of the little box in which they're packaged in that you're supposed to follow. So, these people are not used to thinking on their feet on that level. And you can tell that Charlotte isn't. And you can tell that Charlotte she was completely taken aback, and the reaction she was getting, I believe, even though she is the heel, I believe that she herself was kind of surprised with how much the crowd was negatively responding to her. I don't think she was completely okay with it. She was doing the big smile, and she didn't have any real comebacks. It was all very milquetoast on how she was trying to get her footing back. And then, of course, Tiffany lands the knockout punch, really, when she gives her the 0-3 line about the marriages. And it's the knockout punch. It's the knockout punch because all Charlotte can do is deliver the worst line ever, the worst comeback of all time. Well, why don't you ask Kaiser what he's doing in my DMs? Boo. That's like conceding victory. That was horrible. And no one bought it. Like, is there a happier couple in WWE, at least on appearance, right? Just based on what we can see. Is there a happier couple in WWE than Tiffany Stratton and Axel Dieter Jr.? I don't think so. There's no one happy. Like, no one bought it. She came across as a schlup. And I'll tell you what, Tiffany knew she was picking at the right nerve. She hit the right nerve because the minute she dropped the 0-3 line, she mic dropped and rolled the fuck out of the ring. And Charlotte started coming for her. And Wade Barrett, you could see in all of his, like, he had his comm in his ear, right? He could hear everything going on, right? He could probably hear a bunch of people being really fucking upset. And all he could do was just stand there and go, mm-hmm. Remember that one time when he just like tried to keep a distance between the two because Charlotte was coming in close to Tiffany. Her body language was aggressive. Like she was ready. She was ready to fight. Just tremendous. How could you not love this? It was a tremendous rain trek. It was a rain trek. A complete and utter train wreck is what that was. And I don't know how you can't love that. And to me, right now, this is the best build of WrestleMania. It's so incredibly organic and real. You get the real, nasty hatred in it. You get you get the ladies coming out doing their promos and you never know what to expect. That is a good pro wrestling build. Again, the promo itself, it's not good. It's not good. But the idea, the concept that they're going off script, that they're pew-pewing from, shooting from the hip. I mean, what's not to love in that? And what that is going to do is this upcoming Friday night SmackDown is going to have a lot of buzz around it the minute that they announce Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton doing shit in the ring Like that is absolutely going to be something something that people are going to buzz about, they're going to talk about, they're going to be excited to see. And yeah, just like the last few weeks, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait to see what happens, and if people get really, really excited, well, there you go. I'll go give it a watch again. Maybe the match at WrestleMania is going to have just maybe it'll be just that much more snug than what it typically would be, right? Maybe it'll be just a little more, just a tiny little bit more. Oh, I think Tiffany went too far. Tiffany didn't go far enough. No, come on now. Stop it. Of course there's people who go, not, Conrad Thompson tweeting out, "Yes, I heard, not cool." Conrad, let's be real here. It is cool. This is something that in 20 years, you're going to have Charlotte on with her podcast, and you're going to be sitting there, chat me up on the night that Tiffany Stratton did the 0-3. What was going through your head? Come on now. It is cool. Charlotte's going around like she owns the place, and to a degree, she is. Look, I don't think she calls herself the queen for accidentally. I don't think it's just like a neat little gimmick moniker that they have for her. Charlotte has always been the golden girl of the women's division. She was always Vince's favorite. She was always pushed to the moon by Vince. Never forget that Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, what was it, 34 at this point? I don't remember the numbers. Becky Lynch was not even supposed to sniff the main event. Remember, the match everyone wanted was Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey at the main event in WrestleMania. And what did Vince do? He went and inserted Charlotte into the main event to make it a three-way, a triple threat. She has always been the golden girl of this division. The queen thing is not accidental, okay? It really is not. It's not just a cute gimmick nickname. So she'll be fine. She'll be fine. What? She's afraid that she's not going to look good after this. She's afraid that she might come off as a schlub. She's winning the match regardless at WrestleMania, right? Like, who cares? She's going to be the one that's going to beat her father's record, not her, not John Cena. It's going to be her. Anyway, I thought it was, I looked at it. I thought it was tremendous. I'm like, more of this. Do more of this stuff instead of the usual nonsense. Like, it's fine. It's fine. Like, of course I've seen people, sticking up for Charlotte and saying, "Oh, they shouldn't do that. That's nasty, and you shouldn't be bringing this stuff up and whatever the fuck." And I'm like, who cares? I don't have that kind of attachment to pro wrestlers or most performers in general. I don't pretend like I know them. I don't pretend that I know them. I don't owe them anything. They don't owe me anything either. They made the choice to go down this avenue, to be a performer, to be in a wrestling show on national television, to open themselves up to these types of situations, to scrutiny or whatever. For myself, I just want to be entertained. I just want pro wrestling to be fun to watch. This, to me, is fun to watch. As far as them as personal individuals go, look, they have to hash their issues out themselves. I don't have a word to say about that. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I really don't care. It adjusts my perception of Tiffany Stratton moving forward. It adjusts my perception of Charlotte Flair moving forward, favorably, negatively, whatever. Other than that, I'm not going to sit here and try to try to say, oh, well, this went too far. She shouldn't have. Well, it's like I said, not even far enough. She didn't go far enough. Let's review AEW Dynasty 2025, shall we? It happened on April 6th at the Licorice Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I do believe I got the pronunciation down. Licorice. I think that's how it goes. Notwithstanding my pronunciation skills, according to WrestleTix, 7,899 tickets were distributed for Dynasty. Now, I'm recording this on Monday, on the day after Dynasty, so it's the 7th today. And this is not the final update. I have not seen a final update from WrestleTix yet in regards to AEW Dynasty, but this was the final update before the show yesterday. 7,899. Of course, it has outdrawn last year's Dynasty. It's outdrawn the last time the two previous occasions that AEW came to the Licorice Center. And overall, this is a show that had a tremendous walk-up. There's no other way to put it. They had to open up seats yesterday because they had great walk-up business. And I am very, very fascinated to see just how many people are in here final. They're clearly going to pass the 8,000 mark, which is, I mean, it's going to be a tremendous gate. This is a good number for AEW. But then again, the pay-per-views are never an issue when it comes to drawing people in, when it comes to paying tickets to go see the show. It's the weekly television that's more of an issue. But the pay-per-views, again, as we like to say here on the Mr. Warren Hayes show, the ticket buyer consumer confidence when it comes to AEW pay-per-views is still very high, whereas the television is a little more, well, not quite as high, let's put it that way. It's low. It's still very low. But these are, again, it's a good sign because this was a card, essentially, as I mentioned on the preview. This was a card that was the opposite of Revolution, where instead of having a really strong mid card and a so-so main event, you had the opposite here. You had a hot main event with a so-so mid card. We'll talk about this probably a little more over the next few days when we get the full numbers and whatnot, and I can, take a look at how things were going. But I would be remiss if I didn't feel like a lot of the ticket moving that happened over the past, 10 days or so was due to Swerve Strickland being slotted in the main event. Should I discard Jon Moxley? No, I don't think so. But I feel like, and this is a feeling, and we'll see if the data can support this. But my gut tells me that interest in this show, in purchasing tickets for the show, really started to rise once it was clear that Swerve was going to be part of the main event. So that is good news. That's a pretty good attendance for a show that overall just is it's a mixed bag. It truly is a mixed bag of a show. When you stack up your pay-per-view with 10 matches, you're going to have some good stuff in there, which is inevitable. But when you start getting bad stuff, and the bad stuff really starts dragging stuff down, and then you sort of look at the time, you look at the card, and you're like, oh my God, there's X amount of matches left. Well, that's never a good sign either. Look, I wasn't expecting this to turn out like Revolution this year, which was just an absolutely bonkers card, which was just chock full of excellent matches from top to bottom. I think those happen once in a while. And I think that all of the matches that on paper felt a little iffy ended up being iffy, with maybe a couple of exceptions, and definitely not necessarily the results that people were expecting or wanted or desired. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. And we're going to, we're not going to bury the lead here. We're going to start straight off with the main event, because this is the point that everyone is talking about. This is the match that is on everyone's lips for multiple reasons. Jon Moxley successfully retaining the AEW World Championship against Swerve Strickland. Okay. Let me start by talking about the match before we get into the particulars or into the meta, if you want. I thought the match was okay. I thought it was pretty good. I thought, the stuff that dragged me out of the match, if you're a regular listener here, you know exactly what it was. But the stuff that dragged me out of the match really did contribute to, chopping it down in my book. I ended up watching a match that just fell apart for me, ending in stuff that I really, really dislike about professional wrestling in 2025. There were other things in the match that irked me as well. Look, okay, the beginning of the match, the start of the match. You're telling me that Swerve Strickland, self-proclaimed most dangerous man in AEW, right, who has been in a feud with Jon Moxley, right, who has been in the build to this match, has been kneecapped with a crowbar, has been thrown into glass a couple of times, right? Had to sit by while Moxley, injured the neck of one of his friends. You're going to tell me that Swerve Strickland comes in and it's like, okay, let's have ourselves a pure rules match. Let's hit the mat. Let's see if I can best you. I mean, I don't understand. There's another match here on this card that started exactly how this match should have started, but didn't even have the stakes or the recent events to warrant it. Talk about that one in a little bit. But I was floored when they start grappling, and then and even Swerve is on the mat and he's like, "Come on, brother, come get me," right? We're getting blood sport, we're getting catch as catch can, and everything was in place for this to be, a violent retribution type of match. It's just wild to me. This, but they got over that hump, and when they did, things started to feel a little more in the range of what we were expecting, right? Swerve gets thrown over the commentary table and he blades when he does. Mox beats him up. Afterwards, Swerve lands a couple of house calls. Shafir and Nana, Marina Shafir and Prince Nana, they get involved, ending with Marina blasting Prince Nana with the briefcase across the head, which leads to Swerve suckering Mox into hitting Shafir with a cutter. And then we get a ladder out. Mox pulls out a ladder. Swerve does a swerve stomp off the ladder through commentary table, which honestly was super cool. Just a crazy ass bump. And then the ref bump occurs. And we get visual pins during this ref bump, right? We get Swerve pinning Jon Moxley, but the referee is still out, Hangman Page comes out and he seems unsure who to hit with his buckshot lariat. He's looking at Mox, he's looking at Swerve. Which one is it? Two guys he doesn't like. Oh no. That drains out the Death Riders who come in to beat him up. He chases them off, but oh, that numbers game. Well, then the ops run in, right? And they brawl with the Death Riders to the back. Now, I wasn't necessarily surprised about this because the ops said that they were going to be at Dynasty looking on to see what was going to happen here. You know, Mox gets hit with the Deadeye by Hangman, and then the lights go out. This might be, it's a little bit out of order, I think. I think like Hangman hits the Deadeye before the ops come out, if I remember correctly. Because the ops take everyone away. Hangman is sort of knocked loopy, and then the lights go out, and they come back on, and the Young Bucks are in the ring, and they hit Swerve with the EVP trigger, and this allows Moxley to get the win. So I thought we were in the midst of a pretty interesting brawl until the ref bump. And frankly, folks, chums, pals, well-wishers, I can't stand this. And what I can't stand is this over-reliance on all of this storytelling and this formulaic way of doing it. I think it's the second, maybe the third time now that since Mox has been champion that we've had this type of finish. A finish which is, quite frankly, taken right out of the Bloodline playbook. The ref bump and the run-ins and the screwball finish and the drama and, Jey Uso coming in or Jimmy Uso coming in. Does he kick Roman or does he kick Jey? All this fucking shit. This is exactly what this was. I'm sorry I apologize to anyone who is in denial. But it's time you get served a hefty ounce of truth here. This sucked because we've seen this sung and dance elsewhere, and it sucked there too. I cannot, in good conscience, okay? I cannot sit here and tell you what a good main event. Well, when I was seeing the exact same patterns over in the other promotion for their main events, and I would sit here and tell you this shit stinks. I've got to be consistent here because this is it's kind of overbooked and kind of have people running out of nowhere. You got a little drama going on. The only thing that was missing was an in-ring monologue. That's all that was missing. Everything else, sorry to say, is straight out of the Bloodline playbook. And people are, I saw comments and oh man, the crowd was so dead, after the three-way match. They didn't have the energy. Did they? Or were they just waiting for the ref bump to happen and all the interferences to happen? Because everyone was at minimum expecting Hangman Page to run out. And you can hear it. You could hear it the minute that the ref bump happens. Everyone was like, oh, here we go. And they all started looking up the ramp. And no, it's not because it happens in AEW, which is a promotion that I enjoy much more, that I'm going to give this a pass. Like, they are literally doing what the other guys are doing. If you go up to Tony Khan, do you ask him in what inning they're in? And is he going to say bottom of the third or whatever the fuck? I can't get behind this. I really can't. Like, it stunk. And it took me out of the match something fierce. And I'm surprised there's not more people really calling this out for what it is. Like, just being blunt, just being outright clear with it. Like, look, this is the Bloodline main event finish pattern. With the tons of people and interferences and surprises And will they, here's the thing. And the thing here is that instead of wondering, does Roman trust Jay? Does Roman trust Jimmy? Does Roman trust Sammy? All that shit. Instead of that, it's like, they substituted that with, do Swerve and Adam Page get along? Will they be able to get along? Or will they just be enemies? Will they, won't they? That's essentially like, that's the substitution, but it's the same thing. It's always, will Roman kick this guy out of the bloodline or not? Oh, there you go. Will these two coexist or not? Will they be friends or not? I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't this doesn't get me hype, doesn't get me excited. This is a promotion that some time ago, and I've talked about this a couple of times, especially on the build up to this pay-per-view for some reason, as if I saw it coming. There was a time this promotion was nothing about screwball finish. You'd get clean finish after clean finish after clean finish. You'd never think about, someone will run in and so on and so forth. You'd have people coming up with all these wackadoo scenarios for pay-per-views and, this guy might beat this guy, when so-and-so comes in and does this interference, and it would never happen. You never have outside interference. You never have this kind of nonsense. But AEW, doesn't want to really be different, I don't think. I think they've curbed. I don't want to give you the impression that I'm like, completely over AEW or whatnot, or like they have curbed over the past, I'd say 4 months, 5 months. They have curbed. I've said this like 4 times. Let me say it one more time. They have curbed their worst instincts when it comes to, sports entertainment stuff, which was really rampant and affected the booking and was really, really terrible. They have gotten tremendously better. But the main event somehow, right now, still has something to do with the bloodline. It still feels very bloodline-esque, I should say. That it's still overcome with all this stuff happening that is very, very, very far away from the original version that we had for AEW. Now it's just like commonplace, and no one even bats an eye. No one says, "Oh shit, why is this happening again?" It's more like, oh, now people are excited. They're expecting it. Like I said, everyone was excited to see how Hangman Page was going to interfere in this match, because he was. Like, this was an inevitability. The worst instincts have been curbed, but we haven't washed it all away. This desire to be sports entertainment and something fresh that the audience, and fresh is the wrong word, but something that the audience will recognize, it seems to be trumping everything right now. So look, I don't know. I don't know. Like, am I intrigued about, here's the thing. Am I intrigued as to what they're going to do with Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland? Yes. Oh God, yes, absolutely. I'm not made of stone, but I think there are ways to do it that make it much more interesting. Look, this is a company that just a few days ago, not even a full calendar week yet, gave us a moment, had one guy say, "I know," in the heat of a moment, and it just shut everything down, and everyone was, oh, there was this groundswell. And I was like, okay, this is good. Like, everything was good. This is the same company that gives us this on a Wednesday, and on the very next Sunday gives us this schmoz at the end. I don't know what to tell you. And it's not even a thing where I'm like, I'm mad that Swerve Strickland didn't win the title. Again, I've been saying this for weeks, and I will maintain this. I think I am the last guy who still sees value in the Death Riders. I think I'm the last person on this planet that still sees the value in Jon Moxley as champion with his troupe. I think that they have done a terrific job rehabbing the angle, making it interesting. Look, never mind the Adam Copeland, John Moxley match at Revolution, but that build did wonders to change the perception. Not necessarily the perception. That's not true because a lot of people still hate it. Let me rephrase. It did wonders to change the dynamic of this angle and make it more down to earth, make it more palatable, make it feel like, that we weren't wrestling for some high concepts of fighting for the soul of AEW. We were back down to, hate and titles. Like, it felt more grounded. And I thought the executions were good. I even thought in the build, John Moxley was starting to look more like himself. I thought he was back to feeling this again. I talked about it on one of the reviews that maybe wrestling Swerve. Maybe Swerve is getting this out of him. And that's tremendous, right? And I was excited because like I said, the reason why I still think that I'm still not going to throw Mox out with the bathwater is that finally in his world championship run, he's fighting people, or at least a guy, for whom the viewing audience perceives as a top guy in the company. I can't hammer this point home enough. Orange Cassidy, not perceived as a top guy. The four-way at World's End, who gives a shit? And Hangman maybe, but the two other guys, no. Adam Copeland, rejected by the audience. Swerve is absolutely seen as a top guy in the company. So we had a little more magic here. We had a little more, a little more to chew on. And I think that sparked Moxley. It sparked the angle. It made things much more interesting. And I still think, as I've said multiple times, there is value in John Moxley in the main event of Y'all In against Will Ospreay, the next guy you're going to anoint, a guy who is ready, like all pre-packaged and ready to go as a top guy. Like he came in ready. He came in with the stamp of approval. He came in with, all the credentials you needed to make him a top guy. But you have him win the big one in the stadium show, pulling the title out of the briefcase. He's the hero. He's the hero we need. Why not Swerve? Is the echo that resonates throughout. Because Swerve is fine. People are so incredibly anxious about Swerve and Hangman and their booking. And I say this so many times, and I'm going to say it again. Hangman lovers, Swerve lovers, these guys, both of these guys are fine. If there are two guys in this company, legitimately, who are absolutely okay, whose booking will never suffer, and who will always be positioned in interesting top spots in the company, it's these two guys. Okay? It's these two guys. They're going to be okay. And I think the story they want to tell here, moving forward, is Hangman and Swerve will learn to join forces against a common enemy. I think that's the thing. I think AEW sees money in Hangman and Swerve being chums. Personally, I think they should never be friends. I think they should be at odds for the rest of their careers. I've been over this multiple times. Wherever they go, whatever promotions they end up in the future, wherever they cross paths, they can, that comes in their contract. They can never play nice creatively with the other guy. A good generational rivalry between two wrestlers that spans years, but look, it looks like we're going to be closer to a Sting and Ric Flair, that's not even a good example. Well, we'll see how things go, but we'll probably be closer to that, like a Sting and Lex Luger, maybe, than, Tommy Dreamer and Raven, for instance, which is what I would have went with personally. But yeah, look, even though after the events last week on Dynamite, after the incident between Paige and Strickland, even after that, I wasn't super convinced Swerve was going to do it. It bumped Swerve higher on my list. I think I said, I think the odds, I think the percentage of Swerve winning the title is 60-40. Like, I didn't give him a runaway percentage, but I did feel it had a potential to be stronger. But I still thought that Jon Moxley had a substantial chance of retaining. And he did. Did I like the way he retained? No, that stunk. But it ends up, we end up with in this spot here. We end up in this spot where Mox is moving forward, and he is extremely likely. I think the path should be very clear to everyone now. He is going to be hanging on to the title until we get to All In. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, Darby's going to come back. Darby's climbing fucking Mount Everest on April 15, right? And I don't know if people think that this is like a day trek. It takes a while. It takes a while to go up Mount Everest. Let me give it a look. Let me take a look here. An expedition takes about 2 months. That includes the preparation, right? However, thanks to advanced technology and pre-acclimatation techniques, it is possible to ascend Everest in just 3 weeks. So, look, the point here is that Darby's not going to be around for much of the Double or Nothing build. And in the meantime, we are going to have a winner of the Owen Hart tournament, and that winner is getting the shot at All In. So we got to let go of the Darby stuff. We really do have to. I think unless we're getting worked, which is not entirely impossible, it is pro wrestling. Unless we're getting worked, I think we have to let go of that. We just have to let that slide us by, as if you're sliding down, on someone's corpse down Mount Everest. In fact, let that guy slip by. Let him just slide by you. It's like, okay, I'm not asking. I don't want to get involved. I think that's probably, you don't want to know why this is happening. Anywho, why were we going down this path? Why were we were talking about All In and Ospreay winning, and look, okay, that's that. And I still think there's value in Moxley hanging on to the title until then. And I think what AEW was trying to say with the finish they gave on Dynasty is, folks, we got something planned for Swerve Strickland. I know you're disappointed, friends. I know you're disappointed. But we have something planned for Swerve Strickland that we feel you're going to like a lot more than him just winning a title. I think you're going to like this a little more. And it's going to involve Hangman, and I think it's going to involve the Bucks. I think ultimately the payoff here is going to be Hangman and Swerve somehow ending up in a tag team against the Young Bucks at the Stadium show. And it's going to be full of all this drama and these twists and these emotional moments that everyone's going to be super into. And we're going to have this great tag team match, and because it's going to be great, at All In. I'm convinced. I'd put money on it if I were a gambling man, which I am not. But I'd still consider it if I were a gambler. And in the meantime, we're going to have a story bump because we're going to get the Anarchy in the Arena, right? probably at Double or Nothing. I wish they wouldn't. I wish they wouldn't do that. I wish they didn't fall into the trappings of Vince deciding that Hell in a Cell was its own pay-per-view instead of just and having it marked on the calendar. Because last year's Anarchy in the Arena was not great. I thought it was the weakest of the series, and I remember really not liking it. Whereas years before, they were like in my top 10 matches of the year. They were a complete blast. What was it? Was it the first one, right? Where they were fighting and John Moxley's music didn't stop because they took out the sound apparatus or whatever. That was cool? Wasn't that cool? You like cool things. I like cool things. And you got to make this special, right? But it's probably going to serve as a story bump for Hangman, Swerve, and the Bucks in some way or fashion, right? Because you've got the Ops now that are going to be involved in this, which is cool. I love Samoa Joe. I love this little trio. And they're, probably going to find some way to get the Bucks involved in this and the Death Riders, and there'll be some tenuous alliances and I mean, look, Double or Nothing's coming up, and historically they've always done an Anarchy in the Arena, Double or Nothing, and what can you do about it? I wish they didn't. I wish it wasn't an annual thing. I wish it was something that they'd pull out surprisingly, like surprise us and just shock us. Just go, hey, we're gonna do this, at Full Gear. Whoa, that's actually cool. That's like Double or Nothing. Now we're expecting it, and I'm like, all right, okie. Look, am I getting preemptively angry for something that hasn't happened yet? Yes. What do you want from me? But essentially, look, I think the message that was sent, folks, all of you who are so worried, is that the message that was sent is that Swerve and Hangman have something way cooler in store than, a title run. They'll give you something very, very satisfying. And I'm kind of excited for that. Now, the one argument that I do want to consider here, which I think is important, and it's a bit of a counterpoint, but it's something that I mentioned again in the lead up to this, and wondering, is Swerve gonna win or whatnot, and that is, listening to your fans and doing things for your fans. And I want to hammer this point again, particularly because Tony Khan on his media call was saying, yes, I listen to fan feedback, right? And a lot of people are like, well, if you were listening to fan feedback, why did you have Swerve lose, Tony? One of the things that AEW has been extremely successful with since the start of the year, and I think has marked a dramatic improvement in how the promotion is presented, received, how people react to it, is because it has been giving its fans things that they want to see. The fans wanted to see Kenny Omega, wrestle, be a champion, be a good guy. They got it. They wanted Hangman Page to be a babyface. He's on his way there. You can argue he's already there, but he's back to being the anxious millennial cowboy at the very least. They got that. They wanted MJF to be a scumbag heel. He's a scumbag heel. They've been so good at delivering what the AEW audience wants to see that I'm convinced it has had an impact on their overall business metrics. The ratings on Wednesdays have been better. Sure, the week-to-week TV tapings aren't drawing crazy houses, but the people who go to these buildings want to see it, and they're excited, and the rooms feel exciting. The venues feel good. The show comes across as a lot of fun to watch on TV, and the shows are a lot of fun to watch on TV. I think it's worked its way into creative as well. Like, everything really, really feels interesting and good in AEW, and I think that that's because they're giving stuff to the fan base that they want to see. Like, they want Tony Storm to be on TV making, horny puns. They'll put Tony Storm on TV to do horny puns. And the people are eating this shit up. And that's good. So I do have to question. Swerve Strickland losing is a weird decision if you consider that umbrella of AEW is giving the fans what they want, right? Because I even argued that right now, I talked about it on the preview, but I'll reiterate the point if you didn't listen to it, which, big finger wag from me. Right now, in WWE land, their fans are a little peeved. They're a little annoyed. They don't think the WrestleMania build is all that great for multiple reasons. I don't want to get into all of the nitty gritty, but there's a lot of stuff right now happening in WWE where even their most loyal fans are questioning the creative, the booking behind it. And to me, I see this as an opportunity for AEW to show how solid they are creatively and just go, yeah, this is what we're doing moving forward. Look at us. Look at us here. We're, there's no malcontents. There's no discontent. Everyone's getting what they want over here on this product. Now, it's a bit of a 90-degree angle from that. If you're booking away from the general sentiment, which was Swerve should win the title, right? So I question that in that aspect where, again, AEW is doing so good. And by giving the fans what they want, why would they keep this away from the fans? Why wouldn't they add this to the plate or to the buffet or whatever, whatever food analogy you want to use in this regard? Which again leads me to believe that whatever you got, which in turn leads me to believe that whatever they have ready for Swerve and Hangman, it's something that the audience wants. And maybe the audience just doesn't, maybe they just don't see it yet, if that makes sense. I am going to rate this match a 3 because I thought it was onto something. There was some good stuff happening in the second. I think there was good work and I was into it, but then the stuff that just fell apart. When stuff started to fall apart, it just fell apart. And I'm not into that and I hate it. I might even, I'm going to give it a 2 3/4 star, come to think of it, because I really hate that. I really hate the bloodline stuff, and this was exactly that, and it stinks. So that's how it goes with the main event. How do we do this? Do we keep just rolling down from the top of the card all the way to the bottom? Should we do that? Okay. It's not as if I can actually get your feedback here. Kenny Omega retained the International Championship by defeating Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey. Just a lengthy, chaotic, athletic match with lots of great spots, great near falls, really good match. Just went too long. It missed the peak. That's all there is to it. This match went 30 minutes, almost 31 minutes. And I beg the question, why? Why would you decide to let this match go 30 minutes on a 10-match pay-per-view to begin with, which had to go overtime? I don't know why this had to be so long. Because quite frankly, this was really, really good. I thought Speedball in this match was tremendous. I thought he looked really good, which was the mission, right? That was what we needed to accomplish here, was to get Speedball over. And I think it worked. He pulled out a lot of his big offense that clearly a lot of the AEW crowd were not familiar with. And it was to their delight, stuff that, if you've seen a lot of Speedball matches, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The moonsault knees on the apron, the windmill kick, the ultimate weapon. His crane kick spot was really good. But he had two tremendous opponents to go along with him. Ricochet worked really, really hard here and pulled out just another great match. And Kenny Omega was excellent, as always. He's, one of the greatest to ever do it. My only complaint here is that it should have been shorter, as there's moments in this match where things started to drag. Felt like they lost the audience, felt like they lost me. There were peaks, moments where you're like, oh, okay, here we go. And it felt like the perfect spot to go to the natural crescendo to end this. But, it was not. We had a Kreutz rack on this one. Kenny pulling out all the stops, trying to get this done. And he won the match with an avalanche. One-winged angel. One-winged angel. Yeah. So he retained. Well, I don't have many notes on this match as far as analysis, because it was really good. Nothing to complain about. I thought this was a tremendous match. I thought this was tremendous work. All three guys shined in this one. And it all came together really well, but just easily could have been 8 minutes shorter. I think easily could have been 8 minutes shorter, and I think I would have liked it more. It's still a 4-star match for me. You see what I'm doing here? This is the very definition of, complaining with your belly full, where you have this tremendous match where you're like, oh God, I wish it was shorter. It's like you're seeing guys in the ring doing insane athletic shit, right? And Speedball, I can't put over Speedball enough. I thought he was tremendous in this. He absolutely nailed his big pay-per-view debut in AEW. Of course, he had the perfect opponents to do it against, right? I think he's made some fans. I think there was a lot of people who weren't familiar with his work in AEW, and now that they are familiar with his work, I'm pretty sure he's got them locked up. He's got brand new fans. And good for him. It was a bit of a high pressure situation for him. Wouldn't be the last high pressure situation for certain wrestlers on this card, but he pulled out tremendous. And look, once again, can we mention one more time how fucking good Ricochet is in AEW? Just absolutely remarkable. Absolutely remarkable stuff. What did I say when this guy was on his way in? What did I say? I told you this guy is still young. His bump card is basically free because he was doing jack shit in WWE. So his bump card is still completely free, and he's hungry and he wants to do stuff, and he wants to shine on the bigger stage. Ricochet is right now a WWE guy who's working out for the company. He's not a Malachi Black. He's not a Miro. This is actually working really well. Of course, he's been on the indies. He understands how it goes. And he was so miserably underused. Is underused the word I want? Is he underused? Misused, I think, is more appropriate. I think misused is the word. Because, look, if we go back in time, okay? At the time that Ricochet was signed to WWE, which was 2018 when he was called into NXT, he was a stellar prospect. And everyone was very excited for him. And yes, his career has always been intertwined with Will's, but he was always perceived to be the better wrestler than Will Ospreay. he was always perceived to be the overall better package than Will Ospreay at the time. And they bring him in, and he has a nice little run in NXT, right? I'm sure everyone will remember the tumble flip that he took out of the ring, landing, right in front of Velveteen Dream, right? And I think we remember that one, right? But then after that, Vince didn't know what to do with him. Vince didn't care. Vince didn't like the little guys. He didn't like the flippy guys. Like, I don't know what to do with you. And it took a while, but Ricochet finally realized, look, they are not going to do anything with me. All my pals are having the time of their lives in AEW. They're wrestling all over the place. And what did he do also when he came out? He flew to Japan. His boy Shima gave him a call, and he went over to, GLEAT, a promotion that doesn't exist. And, worked there. He worked Japan. Like, this guy's ready to go. And whatever, I don't know, rust or whatever he had to shake off from the WWE style that was hampering what he did, that kept him down, whichever way you want to use it, he's completely got rid of that. He's molted into his fresh new skin. How about that for a really weird analogy and a little creepy? But nonetheless, I think it's appropriate. His heel character is tremendous. He's doing fantastic in-ring work. I don't think anyone can, and he was iffy when he started, right? Remember his first match in AEW against Kyle Fletcher, which wasn't great, and everyone was sort of, clenching their teeth, going, sucking the air through clenched teeth. Oh, this guy, dusted himself off, got back on track. I mean, the heel turn is absolutely the best first step he took to get back on track, and everything after. I have no complaints with Ricochet. I think Ricochet is a model former WWE in AEW citizen. But again, all of his pals are there. All of his friends are there. All the guys he came up with, they're all there. Anyway, so overall, a 4-star match that I'm bitching about. Adam Cole defeated Daniel Garcia to become the new AEW TNT Championship. I don't know what to add here. I thought this match was boring. I thought this match was boring as hell. It was well worked. I thought Daniel Garcia worked his ass off in this match, and that's why I'm keeping this. I'm keeping this match in the 3-star range here. I'm giving this match 3 stars. Spoiler alert. Because Garcia worked too hard to try and make something out of this match here, but it was dry. No one was into it. Are we done with Adam Cole? I'm asking this seriously. Are we done with Adam Cole? Is there still something left to extract from Cole here? Because he still hasn't recovered from the brochacho stuff. He really hasn't recovered. And his wrestling has not been great. I know injuries, so on and so forth. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's been fine, but it's not necessarily exciting. We're not tearing down the house watching an Adam Cole match. And the thing that I've noticed is that people get really excited for the Adam Cole entrance. They want to do the boom. They want to do the Adam Cole Bebe. They're very excited about that. It's a good theme song. Don't get me wrong. It's supposed to make you hype. You're hype. But you'll notice once the bell rings, a lot of the heat dissipates. There's really not much left. So I don't know what you do with Adam Cole. I think making him TNT champion is a little strange. I don't know why you'd take it off Dan Garcia unless you have plans for Dan Garcia winning up. I don't know. I don't know what this is about here. I thought that, look, that's the extent of my notes for this match. It was a dry as drywall, boring ass match. That is a 3-star special because one guy worked his ass off to make it work. And here's that's not true. One last note. I lied to you folks. I do have one more note. One last note. This match was supposed to be a no time limit, no outside interference match, right? No time limit because there's a 20-minute time limit on the TNT title matches. And the last time they fought on Collision, they went the full 20. So they were like, let's get rid of the stipulation so that we can take the time we want because we're so evenly matched and so on and so forth. That's what that stipulation entails, is that these guys are so evenly matched. They can't go under 20 minutes. They have to go over 20 minutes. And they didn't even go over 20 minutes. They went 15 minutes, 35. So I'm like, what the fuck? Why did we do this in the first place? Like, why? It's so weird. Like, that's a weird booking decision, AEW. I don't understand why that happened. Why do the special stipulation if you're not going to go above 20 minutes? That being said, I'm very comfortable with this match not having gone more than 20 minutes. Then we had Bandito defeating Chris Jericho to become the new Ring of Honor World Champion, and at the same time retaining his mask, because this was a mask versus championship match. And look, I thought Jericho had a little spark. He had a little spunk. He had a little spring in his step. I didn't think it was. I thought he was good in this match here. I know it's not a popular thing to say about Chris Jericho, but I thought he was pretty good. And he was so good he lost a tooth. He was kind of mad that he lost a tooth. I would say maybe Bandito is going to have to pay for the dental on that one. Apparently there's a little heat backstage, but yeah, look, I don't want to necessarily go 3 hours on this review either. We still got 7 matches left or whatever the fuck. I don't know. We still got a lot of matches left. 1, 2, 3, whatever. So, I don't want to spend an eternity on breaking down the match here, but there's a lot of stuff I enjoyed here. But what we want to talk about is the finish, right? Where Chris Jericho, well, first of all, one spot that I will mention before getting to the finish is Bandito doing the 60-second stalling suplex. That's one of his signature spots, and I'm glad he got it done and that he got the crowd counting. And the more he'll do it, the more people will get into it, because I just think there's a lot of people who are not familiar with Bandito's work. Just like with Speedball, just like with Kevin Knight. I think there was a time that the AEW audience was a little more I think there was a time that the AEW audience was had more awareness of what was going on out, in the wide world of professional wrestling. So I think maybe a few years ago, a Bandito coming in would have probably been received with much more excitement, more Mike Bailey. Whereas now I don't think it's the same audience. I don't think they necessarily are aware of Bandito and Speedball, which is why these guys needed these matches to showcase who they are and how they perform, so that the AEW audience can endear themselves to them, which is fine, don't get me wrong. But so a guy like Bandito has to have these opportunities to do more of his signature moves, especially, really fun, crowd participation ones like the 60 minute, Jesus Christ, right? 60-second stalling suplex. That was good. But anyway, the finish. Jericho has a bat, and while the ref is distracted because Gravity is fighting with Brian Keith on the floor, Jericho swings the bat at Bandito and gets the win. And when that happens, when I see the 1, 2, 3 being counted, I legitimately released from the deepest recesses of my chest. The loudest what I have ever put out there. I could not believe that Bandito had been pinned and that we were going to get a luchador unmasking in AEW off of a fucking bat shot. I was so pissed and it didn't make sense to me. I was like, this Bandito guy, he's got to be the most handsome motherfucker anyone must have ever seen to want to get rid of such a cool fucking mask. Because Bandito's mask is awesome. It's so cool. It's iconic for him. Like, he really looks terrific. So I'm like, this guy has to be like the most beautiful man on earth. To be like, yeah, we'll just take it off and then do the little. And then I was thinking, you know, maybe they'll bring Hugo into the ring to do like the ceremony, the unmasking ceremony, and reveal that his name is, I don't know, Salvador Chavez or whatever from Tijuana, age 26 or whatever, you know, to do the whole thing. And I was like, but Bandito's family was ringside and they get involved. They jumped the rail. What the fuck? They jumped the rail to talk to the ref. To Ref Aubrey, who was not really involved in the match, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Look, bear with me here. And they get Ref Aubrey to find the bat, and because they find the bat, they restart the match. Now, listen, it's stupid. It's a dumb fucking finish. It's a dusty finish, and you have all the rights in the world to hate it, and I don't like it either. It's dumb. It's super dumb. There are no replays in pro wrestling. If there ever were, you know, see, at least that'd be different, right? But there's no replays here. We can't go back and watch the tape. So, you know, the referee's decision is not final, and and this will never happen. And again, until another like fucking 3 years when they decide to do this kind of fucking finish again. Jesus Christ. Like, it was super annoying. It was super annoying. But I'll tell you what I appreciated here, because Bandito gets the win when they restart the match with the 21 plex. But what I did appreciate here, nonetheless, they got me. Like, they got me. They fucking got me. You know, in an environment where oftentimes I'm like, no, I can see this coming. Oh, I understand this. They're going to go this way. You know, now I'm like, I completely blindsided. None of this made sense to me. I was so shocked. But then when I saw the referee stuff and I was like, oh, okay. Then I calmed down. So if anything, kudos to them for lighting a flame under me. Jesus Christ. I was so mad. I was really mad. I think I was in the midst of writing up a post on Blue Sky when the ref stuff started to happen. I'm like, oh, wait. And I ended up Xing out of the post. Anyway, good for Bandito. Now, the big issue we have here is that Bandito is not going to be on Dynamite. He's not going to be on AEW TV proper for a long time now. He's going to go back to Honor Club. He's going to go back behind the paywall. And, you know, the larger Dynamite AEW audience is not going to get any more familiar with the Ring of Honor World Champion. That ultimately, that's the really suck thing about all of this. That I think they were on their way. They did a lot of work to get him over. That's where we're at. You know, just like 2 3/4 stars. Kyle Fletcher defeated Mark Briscoe to advance in the men's Owen Hart Cup tournament quarterfinal. Yeah, this is my match of the night. I fucking love this match. I love these two guys. Mark Briscoe and Kyle Fletcher is my favorite low-key rivalry in all of AEW. These guys have fought multiple times against each other in matches with stakes, of matches that have at the very least, personal significance. They have a very low-key rivalry. And every time every time I see Fletcher and Briscoe, I'm like, let's go. I'm in. You got me. What do I have to do? What do I have to do to get more of this? These guys rule. And they rule together. And they understand that. I feel like they are the only two people in the company that understand that they don't, in kayfabe, they don't like each other. And they always have something to prove with each other. Now it's what? Their series is tied at 2. I think Mark Briscoe had 2 wins over Fletcher, who had 1 loss, and now they're tied at 2, I believe. Let me check. Yeah, exactly. They in singles matches, okay, and this includes Ring of Honor, right? In the AEW verse, the Tony verse, let's call it. How about that? Mark Briscoe defeated Kyle Fletcher in Ring of Honor in June last year. Then Mark Briscoe beat Kyle Fletcher in the Continental Classic last year. Then Fletcher beat Briscoe on an episode of Collision. And then Fletcher beat Briscoe at Dynasty. So they're tied up at 2 apiece. This is the kind of storytelling that I like. This is the kind of stuff that I'm into, where you think about how you think about the history, the past, and where they're at in their own personal ratings. And why would you not get excited about this when their matches are always kick ass? They're so good. An incredible match we got here that starts before the bell. Again, these guys have a low-key rivalry with each other. It's never like the big centerpiece, but if you're if you're paying attention and following the career, you're like, wait, these guys are fighting again? These guys are fighting again? They're 2-1. Briscoe leads 2-1. They don't like each other. So this one starts off right before the bell. I think Briscoe dives, right? Something like that, or goes after. Kyle dives onto Briscoe. Compare that to the main event that had been building with some legitimate bad blood, and those dudes decided to, slap on some key locks. Jesus Christ, man. And look, Mark Briscoe, as usual, just pours everything out of him to entertain us unworthy fans. Kyle Fletcher, the kid can do it all. He is so incredible. It is flabbergasting how good he has, how much his game has been elevated in just a year's time, from the same spot last year to here. And he's only going to continue to improve. You know how sometimes I say, how we're so lucky to be seeing Will Ospreay, live and in the flesh, or sometimes I say that with Kenny Omega, to see these all-time great wrestlers that in 50 years, once we're all, food for worms, and wrestling fans go back and they go back to watch some classic wrestling from, the 2010s, 2020s. They're going to pull up these matches and they're going to say to themselves, fuck, what a great time for pro wrestling. Can you imagine watching Will Ospreay develop right before you and become the one of the greatest to ever do it? When I said, we have to start saying that about Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher is becoming the superstar right in front of our eyes. And Will Ospreay is not off working the UK indies or, on a streaming service in Japan. He's on, Kyle Fletcher is on national television, national broadcast television, on a national streaming service. And it's happening right before our eyes. The guy is outstanding. And I'm just talking about the work. I'm talking about his persona, his personality, what he creates in the ring, how the connection that he has as a heel with the audience. He's so good. And it's happening right before us. And in a couple of years, I'm convinced we're going to be saying, I am convinced that in a short amount of time, just a couple of years, tops, we are going to be saying Kyle Fletcher is the greatest pro wrestler on earth. I'm ready to burn my reputation on it. Unless he gets, of course, barring any catastrophes and disastrous injuries or stuff like that, this guy is unstoppable. He is so good. And he and Briscoe have unreal chemistry with each other. Just unreal. Briscoe, he's running the guardrail to do the cactus elbow to the floor, right? Kyle Fletcher, he snapdragons Briscoe on a standing chair in the ring. And you know when I tell you he's such a good heel and he has these connections? He does this, okay, he's on the floor with Briscoe, of course, and he grabs Briscoe and he power bombs him against the edge of the apron, right? Picks him up, does it again. Referee, he's got enough. I think it's Paul Turner. It doesn't matter. Referee comes out and he's got enough, and he insists and he tells Fletcher, you can't do this anymore, get him back in the ring. Fletcher relents. He goes, okay. So he picks up Briscoe again, but instead of powerbombing him on the apron, he powerbombs him on the rail, which I was floored. And it is such a good, and he's so smarmy about it. It's like, oh, I did what the referee told me to do. He's just so fucking good. He's so good. Then back in the ring, well, look, first of all, we get a brain buster by Kyle Fletcher on the apron. Another one in the ring. Mark Briscoe kicking out, does a froggy bow and a cutthroat driver, which is something I haven't seen in a while. And then lands another froggy bow to the floor. And then he goes for it again. Fletcher lifts the feet, so Briscoe eats that right in the mush. And Fletcher gets the win with the generico brainbuster, which is apparently something he's going to be doing regularly now, which is insane. I've been gushing on Kyle Fletcher, but give me a moment here. Mark Briscoe. I don't campaign for things much when it comes to pro wrestlers. Like, you got to do this and, hashtag and, all that bullshit. But I'll be damned if 2025 rolls on and Mark Briscoe doesn't have a proper singles push in this company. And I'm not saying push him to the world championship title. That's not what I'm saying at all. But Mark Briscoe works too fucking hard in this company. He's too versatile, does it all. He's able to work with everyone, and he gives every match everything he has, every single time. And you know what? Crowd loves him because they can see the effort, the passion, the love that he puts through. I say, give Mark Briscoe the 2023 Eddie Kingston run. Not talking about sending him to Japan. That's not what I have him work at G1. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is give Mark Briscoe. I think Mark Briscoe is in the perfect position right now to be the underdog, to be the guy that, never wins never wins a big match, always seems to come up short. Now would be a great time to elevate him and bring him to a moment where he can truly feel like he's won something big in AEW to the delight of the fans. I don't think there is a single set of fans in this company who would poo-poo Mark Briscoe having an emotional, dramatic run for the TNT title, for the international title, and winning it. I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. I don't see who. Everyone loves Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe works too hard. He's better than being a JTTS right now. He's much better than this. And I think there's money. I think there is buzz, energy, and money in giving Mark Briscoe the 2023 Eddie Kingston run where he overcomes the odds to finally become a champion in AEW. Oh, the Warren, he was world champion in Ring of Honor. Here's the thing, and I want to immediately apologize to Ring of Honor fans who are still who are invested in the history of the promotion, but no one cares about Ring of Honor in 2025, and that is not your fault, superfan. It's Tony Khan's fault. You know, the pro of him buying Ring of Honor and saving the tape library and preventing it from falling into WWE's hands has the con of being stuck behind a paywall and no one gives a shit about it. And now it's kind of developmental for AEW, which also kind of is kind of shit. So no one cares. But an AEW title, like, I would much prefer a Mark Briscoe run with the TNT title than an Adam Cole one any single day of the week. This is something that has to happen. This is something I might be very militant on. I might be talking about this more and more, but it came to me as I was watching this match. I was like, he's too good. He's too good, and the fans love him too much. And it will only grow as he works his way to becoming a champion in the company. You know, put a title on Ricochet and have Ricochet belittle and bemoan him, right? And say, you got to work your way up here, you punk. You know, Ricochet and his smarmy asshole demeanor. That's what you should do. 4.25 stars for me. This for Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe. AEW Women's World Championship, timeless. Toni Storm defeated Megan Bayne. Physical match. I liked it. You know, Bayne displayed her power. She had that completely. That was the whole point of this. You know, it was very good. Worked to Bayne's strengths, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What else is there really to analyze here? You know, bigger wrestler versus smaller wrestler. You kind of had the formula here, and it worked. It worked really, really well. Toni Storm gave a lot. You know, all she had to do was take an inordinate amount of bumps and get thrown around and so on and so forth. Megan Bayne was very good. She was very good in this role. Very believable, of course, because she has the size and so on and so forth. This was, again, like, this was really good. You know, there's that tremendous avalanche German suplex that Tony did, where, from the first angle, everyone thought that Megan Bayne had landed like straight on her face, but they did the replay and you're like, oh, okay, no, that was okay. It looked gnarly at first, but it was nonetheless tremendous. Bayne counters some hip attacks, kicks out at one from the Storm Zero, lands a sit-out powerbomb, gets Toni Storm up for the F5. I can't remember what the name is of her finisher, what she calls the F5. The Fates Descent. Fates Descent. It's the F5. And she's got her up on her shoulders, but Storm cradles her up for a flash victory. Look, I enjoyed this. I thought that was very good. Physical, well played, tight match. You know, I know a lot of people, have complaints when it comes to Toni Storm's match lengths, but she excels in these. Time limits that she has. I don't know what it'd look like if she, if you started giving her 20 minutes, 25 minutes or whatever. She's very, very good. This was what, it was a 15-minute match, and it didn't even feel like a 15. It felt shorter to me. Isn't that wild? 15 minutes is that's a good solid match, and that's exactly what they had. They had a very good, tremendous match. I gave it 4 stars. So we'll see what happens next. This is the kind of finish that might have you think, this feud must continue, trademark. But if it ends here, for now, I'm okay with it. The AEW World Trios Championship were also defended. The Death Riders successfully retained the title against Rated FTR. I thought this was well worked. I thought this was a really solid, well-worked match that I really wasn't invested in and failed really to get me invested. There was a lot of three-way offense that I thought was really good. In particular, this one sequence where the Death Riders, they do a lot of corner attacks, and it finishes with 2 fastball specials. I thought I was satisfied with that. I was like, all right, this is really good. Like a solid match, good match, but one that I had just no emotional investment in, right? Wheeler Yuta, who was completely turned on by the Philadelphia crowd. They didn't give a shit about him. He wins by landing a Bosaiku knee on Dax. Post-match, though, this is the real talking point. FTR finally decide to turn on Cope. At first, it's Dax who attacks Copeland by giving him a flash pile driver. And Cash at first sort of goes, what's going on? He's like, what are you doing? But they get together and do a shatter machine. So I guess Cash was in on it all along. He was just pretending, acting, I guess. And they do the pile driver. They do a shatter machine and a stuffed pile driver and 2 concertos. So, I don't know if you heard, Adam Cole has a broken neck. Adam Copeland has a broken neck. So they really emphasized that with this post-match attack, which was fantastic and got even more ridiculous when the paramedics arrived and they started fucking around with the gurney and the neck brace. And suddenly, all of a sudden, I'm like FTR school again. I'm like, this is the most interesting FTR have been in fucking months and months. This is good. When's the last time they've been heels? This is tremendous. And especially if they're like, smash mouth, fuck you kind of heels. I think it's great. Stop talking about, your fucking wife and daughter and all of this shit. And it's like, let's go. Let's just be nasty, just nasty, irreverent bullshit guys. Bullshit guys. Just who don't give a shit. I think I'd be very much into this. It's a good move. I think everyone was expecting the turn to happen. I think at the very least, I think there were a lot of combinations that were involved here that I don't think people really were invested in both Dax and Cash turning, but this was really good. And Cash, man, I don't know. He's been so good recently. I think he's been really, really good. And his performance during the angle when the paramedics were around, it's just like unhinged, insane shit. And I love it. I love it. Like, I think it's going to work really, really well. Everyone's expecting a Adam Copeland, Christian Cage reunion to take on FTR. You're going to have to really sell me on that one because Cope and Christian Cage, yeah, you're going to have to sell me on that one. I'll tell you. And it's going to be a hard sell. 3 and 3.25 star overall. Because I thought the match was solid. Just didn't care about it. Mercedes Moné defeated Julia Hart to advance in the Women's Owen Hart Cup tournament. She won the quarterfinal. I thought this was a little slow. I thought this was a little sloppy. And not in the usual Mercedes Moné sloppiness where she uses it to her advantage. It was more like, I think Julia Hart was slowing things down a little bit. I think she wasn't really into it. Things picked up in the second half of the match. I thought the submission bit was really good, like the back and forth. I thought that was very, very good. But look, Mercedes has to lock in a seatbelt type pin to get the win. Julia, she's still very, very young at this, right? She's still very new and she's still very young. But there's got to be a way for her to get more reps in, because I don't think, look, she has to figure out how to string a match together instead of just going from move to move. She's got to tell that in-ring story too. And there were moments in this match in the back half where it just felt like she was going, oh, now I have to do this move. Then she does it. And now I have to do this move. And it doesn't flow, I don't know if she was intimidated by being in the ring with Mercedes. I don't know if, jitters or whatever. Like, I don't know. She didn't, her offense, everything she didn't feel like it was coming across as confident, which is a shame. And I think I still think Julia Hart has potential. And her presentation is second to none. And I think she's locked down a lot of the presentation. Still might come with age, of course, but as it stands, it's like, look, this match wasn't very good. That's all there is to it. Very average. Very, very average. 2 3/4 stars for me. I don't have much more to say. Mercedes seemed slow. Julia seemed slow. It was overall sloppy. Let's just move on. The Hurt Syndicate retained the AEW World Tag Team Championship against Big Bill and Brian Keith. And I don't know, this wasn't very good either. The Hurt Syndicate are not exactly tearing the house on fire, putting the house on fire, setting the house on fire with their in-ring work. Look, I love the act. I love MVP. Shelton and Bob are fantastic. Like, there's nothing you can't say about the act. It's once we get into the ring, like, I don't know if it's the quality of opponents. I don't know I don't know what it is, but we're not exactly tearing the house down. I got it right that time. They really played off the fact that Brian Keith was outclassed here. And I don't know how excited I am about, just outright burials. Like, I understand the idea behind doing this is that the Hurt Business are really on another level. And the only other guy who could, do stuff to Shelton or Bobby was, the guy who was 6'10", And meanwhile, MVP on commentary was kind of burying Brian Keith too. And I'm like, do we have to be doing this? Like, this seems a little excessive, right? Anyway, I don't have many notes here. MJF is hiding behind the barricade, and as on the arena side of the barricade, and when Big Bill and Bobby Lashley are fighting on the ground, on the floor, I should say, MJF clocks Big Bill across the face with the Dynamite Diamond Ring while the ref was distracted, of course. And that leads to Shelton Benjamin getting the win, or both guys actually getting the win on Brian Keith. And Bobby Lashley seemed a little surprised. Wasn't sure he was excited about Max doing this, but the story that they're telling is Max wants to prove himself. They said, prove yourself. Max says, okay, I'll do it. So I don't know what his scheme here is. I really don't know what the scheme is, but I'm sure something on Dynamite this week will clarify things. 2.5 stars for me on that one. And then we get to the opener, which was Will Ospreay versus Kevin Knight, which was fantastic. An absolutely fantastic match. Once again, it rocked. Started off a little rocky, but boy, oh boy, once these boys found their footing, this match rocked. And Kevin Knight, man, he was ready to fly. Will Ospreay, he was ready to give, and he gave a lot to Kevin Knight on this one. Again, this was another match on the show, where the mission was put over the new guy. We have to make the new guy look good, even though he might not be winning the match. Speedball, Megan, and now Kevin Knight. Ospreay tries to sunset bomb Kevin Knight off the apron, right? This was a really good spot. There was this really good spot where Will Ospreay, he tries to sunset bomb Kevin Knight off of the apron to the floor, right? But Kevin Knight interrupts it. Will Ospreay then tries to set him up for a Styles Clash, but Knight is like, he's pulling his arms up against him, and so that Ospreay can't lock him in. And instead, he being Knight, he crunches up from the Styles Clash position and does a DDT on the floor, which was absolutely fantastic. And there was that crazy Code Red style spot in the ring, which was fantastic. The UFO splash as well. But Knight eventually eats the Styles Clash, an Oz Cutter, and the Hidden Blade, like the triumvirate, right? And he's done. Yeah, I mean, that was fantastic. It was a fantastic outing. Again, like I said, a little rocky at first. It was a little rough around the edges, but once that started to cook, brother, that was something else. That was really good. And what I liked about it is that like Kevin Knight hit all of his really spectacular offense, and the crowd just ate it up. And I think he is a made guy now. It may have been bad luck for Jay White, who was supposed to be slotted in this spot. May have been bad luck to get injured, but turned out to be fortunate for Kevin Knight, who, despite losing once again in a singles match in AEW, managed to look like $1 million. And of course, he's with Will Ospreay, who will bend over backwards to make other guys look great, especially young guys. So yeah, there you go. Men's Owen Hart tournament quarterfinal was settled there with Will Ospreay getting the win. It was great. It was a blast, and a good coming out moment for Kevin Knight. 4 stars. And that takes us to the pre-show. 2 matches on the pre-show. Trios match with Nick Wayne and crew, which are Action Andretti and Lio Rush, defeating AR Fox and Top Flight. I thought this was a blast. Fast-paced, high-flying opener. Dives. Just great way to kick off the show. Nick Wayne scored the pin on AR Fox, if I'm not mistaken, with the Wayne's World. And no, this was a lot of fun. It was a good match that had a little build on Collision as well. And then Max Caster came out for his open challenge, and it was answered by his former tag team partner, Anthony Bowens, who came out with a completely different look, full repackaging, new gimmick, new gear, new music. Anthony Bowens, the pride of pro wrestling, the 5-tool player. And he comes to the ring and, proceeds to dispose very quickly of Max Caster, which is Max Caster's whole gimmick right now. That was, a fantastic debut. The Philly crowd was really excited to see him back. I will add my voice to the chorus of people saying, why not do this on Dynamite? I don't know what the benefit of doing it on a pre-show was, because I think Anthony Bowens is really well liked by the AEW audience. I think a lot of people were excited to see him back, and I think it would have been more impactful to have him return on Dynamite. But that's just me. I'm glad he's back. He's got a lot of upside. He's a tremendous worker. He's got a fantastic look. There you go. He's going to get his singles run. Let's see where that leads us with the 5-tool player, the pride of pro wrestling. His finisher is called the Mollywop. That's what it's called. The Mollywop. Emphasis on the P is mine. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, it's a show full of back and forths, and it's a kind of a straight down the middle one for me. Like the stuff that I liked, I really liked. And there's a lot of stuff that I just didn't care for, which really balances everything out. So I'm like, okay, well, we did have some extraordinary matches, and there's stuff that you should check out. You absolutely got to watch Mark Briscoe and Kyle Fletcher, Will Ospreay and Kevin Knight. I think the World Women's Championship is well worth your while as well. And, the international title as well, the 3-way, I just think it's a little long. I think the 30-minute time investment for what it is a little much, but it's a look. Again, I'm bitching about a great match. Oh, Warren, won't you ever learn? Anyway, that was my review of AEW Dynasty 2025. It is now time to review New Japan Pro Wrestling Sakura Genesis 2025 that happened on April 5th, just a couple of days ago, from the good old Ryogoku Kokugan in Tokyo, Japan. Let me give you the TLDR, okay? And if you want to immediately X out, you can. Don't though. The more you watch, the better it is. It'll get good. There's some expectations I'm laying on myself that I probably won't live up to. But look, the long and short of this review is I like this show. I thought this ended up being a pretty good show in regards to my expectations. I mentioned on the preview last week that I was coming into the show with very, very, very low expectations. And there wasn't much here that was doing it for me, that was getting me all excited and hot and bothered. I was even doubting, is New Japan really back? Because just a couple of months ago, that's what I was talking about on this very podcast thing. I was saying, I think New Japan may be back. I think we're back in business. And this show, the card that was laid out, I kind of shrugged at it and was like, well, we'll see what happens. But turns out, wasn't really as bad as I thought it was going to be. In fact, this was a good show. Was it a great show? Is this, are we talking about the return of Wrestle Dynasty 2? Is this another New Beginning show, New Beginning 2025 show? No. We're not even close to that. But this was good. There was a lot to like on this show. There's a lot of pitfalls I feel they had set up for themselves that they deftly avoided. Let's get into it. Let's start talking about the show. First of all, how about we mention the attendance? 6,640 people were in the venue. This was New Japan's first stop at the Ryogoku this year. In comparison to last year's Sakura Genesis, same venue, same time of year, right? It was like on April 6th last year. 6,632 tickets were distributed. So they did a whole, they did a whole 8 extra people in the building, folks. 8 more people made it. We're on an upswing here. So we're basically at the same place that we were last year, that was main evented by Shingo Takagi defeating Evil Tetsuya Naito defeating Yota Tsuji was the main event, and we also had Shingo Takagi defeating Evil for the Never title. That's what we were dealing with last year. How does this fare to other events in the Ryogoku for New Japan. Well, again, this is the first time that the promotion has gone to the venue in 2025. But last year there were 4 stops. The 2 final nights of the G1 last year were in Ryogoku. 5,340 for the semifinals, and the finals on which was on August 18, so August 17, and on August 18 for the finals between Zack Sabre Jr. and Yota Tsuji. That packed in 8,056 people, which is still very, very high. And then they were back for King of Pro Wrestling just a few months later on October 14. They drew 6,211 people with the main event being Zack Sabre Jr. Defeating Tetsuya Naito to win the IWGP World Heavyweight title. So we're really in the same kind of ballpark as the regular New Japan attendance in Ryogoku does. What this says to me is that, when you look at how much more the G1 drew, we're talking like 2,000 more tickets were put out there, almost, or in the vicinity of. This tells me that there's really no one still right now in New Japan, who is captivating the attention, who is grabbing the fascination of the professional wrestling fan in Japan, to the point that to the point that more and more people are joining in. There's I think they're doing well, don't get me wrong, but I've argued that the Hiroki Goto run was probably a good decision for business. Things seem to be on an uptick in regards to attendance. The local crowd, the Japanese crowd, is clearly very much behind the push, and sometimes it does take a little time for a push to really gather steam and be excellent. So I'm absolutely not going to sit here and tell you that the Hiroki Goto push is shit, that it's useless, it hasn't done anything good for business, because they drew basically the same amount as that they always do outside of the G1 finals, which you have to throw out. Like, that's the draw itself, right? The G1 finals, like, no matter, I would assume, no matter who you put in there, like it draws itself. Like, there's not much more you need to do to get a bigger house than say, well, it's the finals of the G1 climax. But back to Goto, as I was mentioning, I've made the argument that maybe from a business sense, it's a good idea that Goto continues to be champion. But I would argue here that while there absolutely is not a dip in or a significant dip in regards to how much they were able to draw here in Ryogoku, there's nothing also to demonstrate here that he is an absolute difference maker. Like, we didn't break any records here. We didn't break out of the typical mold that New Japan has in attending Ryogoku. You have the impression that they draw the 6,000, 6,500 that they usually draw for the building is pretty much their baseline. These you get the feeling that these are diehard New Japan pro wrestling fans. So again, I don't want to give the impression that I'm telling you Hiroki Goto as a draw stinks. I wouldn't say that. I think he has been a net positive over the last few shows that he's been on. And here it's pretty much stable. It's business as usual, and it's business as usual is fine, but we'll see how things continue to develop moving forward is, because at this point, I don't know how long Hiroki Goto is going to hang on to the title, but they probably want to see how much more. They probably want to see how much more juice they can squeeze out of this. Maybe there will be upticks. Maybe there will be noticeable differences moving forward. Maybe the Ryogoku crowd it is what it is, but, as far as hard data right now, this show should indicate that, Goto he's not a bad champion. Like, we're not losing people coming in to see the shows. We're not losing paying customers, but it's not the revolution that a lot of folks are purporting it to be, and I'm including myself in that as well. But then again, it can also be an anomaly. Let's just keep that hovering. We'll put a pin in that, and we'll revisit this later down the road, whether on another review or on the podcast proper. In this segment, on the podcast, we'll keep an eye on how things are going. It's absolutely not a disaster, but with how I was perceiving the momentum and how I felt things were going, I truly believed that Goto was going to push the numbers up in Ryogoku, and in a significant matter too. And instead, we've just flatlined. Everything is standard. So yeah, again, if your standard is 6,500, 6,000 to 6,500, I don't think that's necessarily bad. But these are not breakaway houses. Yeah, let's just go ahead. Let's start talking about the show proper. Let's start breaking down these matches, starting off with the main event. We'll go from there. Hiroki Goto successfully retained the IWGP World Heavyweight title against David Finlay. I thought this match was terrific. I thought this was so much fun. It was a really, really good match that was extremely physical. Look, all this was about was two guys pummeling each other, trying to outdo the other guy. It wasn't, fancy, but it was hard hitting. It was great. Like, this was exactly it was a Hiroki Goto special where comes in, fired up, ready for a fight, ready to go. And Dave Finlay was absolutely meeting that energy. Look, they were early on. They're, it's getting physical. They're striking each other. And then they got, they do they set up the tables on the outside when they were fighting on the floor. So there's tables out there just waiting to happen. The Chekhov's gun situation. Lots of strikes. Huge lariat by Dave Finlay that turns the tides for him. And he's just throwing Hiroki Goto around, which is, spectacular. Like I've talked about quite a bit since the start of the new year. Dave Finlay as a performer, a character, if you will, has found his footing. Like, he knows who he is in the ring now, and he's a deceptively strong guy who's just wants to bully people. That's what he wants to do. And he wants to bully children too, because he was making fun of Goto's kids were at ringside as well. He does a dominator on Goto, and then finally the tables come into play where Hiroki Goto does a Death Valley driver off the apron through the tables in a crazy spot, which I thought was absolutely tremendous. Finlay goes for the overkill. It's reversed into a Shouten Kai by Goto to a big cheer from the crowd. The Japanese audience, they love the Shouten Kai. I don't know why Goto why he ever decided to change his. Wasn't that his finisher for a while? I think it was, right? And I don't know why he ever decided to change that, because the crowd really, really loves the Shouten Kai. They go nuts for it. It would be such a great finisher, but that didn't finish the match. Obviously, a GTW and a couple of GTRs get the job done for Goto, who wins. Now, look, this is the decision ultimately that New Japan had to do. What are we doing moving forward? Well, they decided to go with Goto moving forward. There were compelling arguments on both sides as to deciding whether you want to move with Goto because of the business aspect, or if you want to pull the trigger on David Finlay becoming champion and having a really good heat-filled story moving forward for New Japan. And they decided to go with Goto. Now, look, again, I don't think there's necessarily a bad answer here. I thought whichever way you looked at it, whether from a business perspective or from a creative perspective, I think there were good, solid reasons to do both. I don't know if, look, to come back to my point earlier, I don't know if the fact that we drew the same in Ryogoku is an indicator that maybe already the Goto stuff is starting to peter out, that we've hit the peak and that now it's not going to be as compelling. There would have been an argument to say, well, look, we're going to pull Goto at the height of his powers and try this on for size for a little bit. Which again, when I say this, I mean David Finlay as a champion. Which again, I think creatively speaking was probably the most interesting outcome. But I think that they clearly see positives with Goto as the top guy. I think they see the crowd reaction from Japanese audiences. And look, frankly, even from us schmucks over here in North America, I haven't seen anyone outright bury the decision to not only have him be the number one contender, but take the belt off of Zack. I haven't seen anyone say, no, this was a terrible idea from the start, right? So do they feel that this groundswell will turn into paying customers? I couldn't tell you. Goto's a terrific champ. Goto is a terrific champion. I got no, I have nothing negative really to say. What I'm talking about is drawing ability as of now. It's more like this is what I'm observing more so than okay, my analysis is he stinks, because that's not it. I'm just wondering. I'm curious to see how much more gas is in this Goto reign. Already, yes, I know I'm all set, but again, talking from a purely business perspective, I'm not talking about the creative aspect. However, I do have to wonder about the creative direction that they are giving Goto moving forward, where he's going to be in this fight to establish who is going to lead Hantai. Is it going to be him or Shota Umino? We'll talk about Shota in a little bit. Or actually, no, you know what? Fuck it. Let's talk about it now. Because Shota Umino came out after the match to sort of set himself up as the next challenger. But I think already Hiroki Goto had called him out. Because, the story here is that despite the fact that he lost his match to Great Khan, being Shota Umino, pronouns pal. And despite the fact that he's come back, reinvented and sort of and the idea is that he has to build his way back up, Shota Umino wants to lead Hantai, despite the fact that he's kind of disgraced. That he's, just a couple of months ago, everyone was wondering, well, who is this guy and where is he going? And not a lot of us have, our minds have not suddenly changed overnight. There's a lot of doubt that still persists in regards to Shota Umino. So it's a curious thing, because he says, look, Hiroshi Tanahashi a couple of weeks ago basically told Goto, you're the guy who's going to lead Hantai, despite the fact that Tanahashi had told Shota Umino a while back that you will be the future leader of Hantai. Now Goto's like, okay, well, there can be two leaders of Hantai. You said earlier tonight in your post-match that, you're going to be the guy who's going to lead Hantai, and so on. So there's like this clashing at the top between the bulls to lead New Japan's main unit. And this is the thing that they've decided to do. This is creatively where we're going with Umino and Goto. And I don't really care for it. I think it's kind of dumb. And the reason why is because, like I said, just a couple of months ago, not all that long ago. I say a couple of months, but Shota Umino got his head shaved in disgrace and has been in the midst of a reinvention that everyone's wondering what the reinvention is, because he just looks like himself and continues to act like himself, but without the fucking glow sticks and coming in through the audience. If this was supposed to be some kind of punishment, I don't understand how getting to the finals of the New Japan Cup, losing, but then being slated as the challenger, as the next challenger to the world champion immediately after the New Japan Cup. I don't see how this is punishment. Like, I don't, like, a lot of people thought that this would be a way for New Japan to tell Shota, get your act together. We don't know exactly what you're doing, but you can be better than this. You need to get your shit together. But it's not. Look, he comes into the New Japan, into the New Japan Cup with, essentially nothing to prove. He gets a bye. He makes it to the semifinal. He makes it to the finals, and we're like, well, isn't the idea here that he's supposed to be humbling himself? That it's so strange. Like, this guy is, so far, to some degree, has been failing upward. Like, he shits the bed at a Wrestle Kingdom main event in the Tokyo Dome, doesn't live up to the standards. Everyone is like, okay, everyone. I think you'd have to be, I don't want to say everyone. That's a sweeping statement. It's a little weird, but a lot of people who were on the fence in regards to Umino finally wisened up and were like, no, okay, this guy he ain't it. And we got to stop trying to make this guy the guy. When in the meantime, you've got other ready to go young dudes who are exciting and ready that you could just push like an instant. And on top of that, the audience have already responded positively to, who accept who they are. And this is how he's getting, basically, he's being rewarded for all of this. It's losing upward. Failing upward, I should say. I don't understand. It's a really bizarre piece of booking, this is. Like, when he hit the New Japan Cup with his shaved head and whatnot, I was like, okay, are we, what's going, is the big change that he's lost confidence and, is he not going to make it, really far in the tournament and whatnot? But no. And then he wrestles Hiroshi Tanahashi. And then he gets inserted into another main event program for the world title. Just months, 4 months after completely shitting the bed. I don't get it. I do not get it. It's a very weird direction to be in. And it's kind of like with David Finlay too. I guess we're going to be doing some War Dogs versus House of Torture stuff. I don't know. But if you want to talk about interesting creative, the interesting creative here would have been Dave Finlay ending the Cinderella story and being just the top shit heel. I like David Finlay a lot more. Like his work in the new, I got on to the David Finlay train in the G1 last year. I thought he was phenomenal. He did some great work, and he has been he's been a solid top guy moving forward since then. It's been really amazing. Creatively, it would have been a lot more interesting if he won the title, but I understand that they're trying another direction, which is a viable direction. But I still think David Finlay is going to be an IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. And will it be this year? Well, because as I thought, I still have a feeling he could do it. I still have a feeling that he might be an appropriate candidate. I'm not letting go of it just yet. Not just yet. As we get closer to Dominion, let's have this conversation again. We most certainly will. But as it stands, like I think there's still David Finlay has always lost upward. Every time he's dropped the title, he's won a title higher. So he's not done. He's not done yet. But yeah, look, the great main event. I gave it 4.25 stars. I enjoyed it tremendously. I thought it was a big. You know what? Honestly, I'm going to bump it up to 4.5. Come to think of it, because it was just let's do it. 4.5 stars, live and on the air. Bump it up a full quarter star, because the final stretch I thought was great and had a lot of and was really hard hitting and was tremendous. Lots of creative stuff happening. Look, I thought this was a tremendous main event for this card. So that of course, that of course does a lot of good things for your perception of a card when your main event lands the way it does. Let's go down the card this way. Then we'll stay in the business end and go all the way to the opener. Yota Tsuji defeated Evil to retain the IWGP Global Heavyweight title. This is going to sound weird to say, but Evil is going to have to win some big matches at some point. He's going to have to win some big matches. I was kind of expecting him to win here because he's as a threat, I don't think he's as interesting or as scary as he was. I think we've moved into an era of House of Torture where no one really sees Evil as a threat, but the shenanigans. So it makes the shenanigans even more annoying because it never really feels like they will have an impact on the match and help Evil win a match maybe that a lot of people felt that he shouldn't. And at some point I was watching the match and I was like, well, what if Evil should win? What if Evil does win? What if he does take the title? Wouldn't that put some heat on him? Which is, I think, like, it's weird to say, but I think that is really, really needed right now, because I think the House of Torture concept right now is just a bunch of little jesters running around, a bunch of imps. You got a little bunch of imps running around doing like stuff, but it never really, and breaking the flow of a match, but for no reason. It just ends up being nothing. So, I believe, and you can take me to task on this if you like, but I think Evil has to win some big matches. I think he's got to start winning some stuff and not just always dropping the opportunity to win a title because he couldn't make it happen. Because that's how he's booked, It's like he's got to feel like a threat. I don't think House of Torture feels like a threat, and there's going to be people who are going to be really happy about that, And I can't say that I'm disappointed in that regard, but I think the point I'm trying to make is that the interference that happens that is a trademark of House of Torture matches is much less compelling if the outcome is always Evil loses LOL. Because then the interference is just annoying. It doesn't bring anything to the table. You're not sitting there with bated breath saying, oh my God, there's so much, you got Dick Togo over here and Sho over there and Takahashi over there, Yujiro, of course, over there doing stuff. And And this might all come together and my guy, the babyface, might lose. Oh my God. And it's going to be so shitty. Now it's just shitty stuff for shitty stuff's sake. And it never works out in the end. And I think that's worse because you're disrupting the flow of the match to have the interference, but there's really no, it has no, it never ends up helping the heel win. It's lost the edge of, oh shit, something bad might happen. And now it's just, oh, here we go again. You know what I mean? If we had the menace of the interference perhaps hurting the match, then it'd be something different. Anyway, yeah, you know, I liked this evil match much more than I thought I would. I thought this was good. I thought this was a good match overall. You know, Yota Tsuji bringing out his twin brother again. I spotted it this time. Fool me once, shame on me, right? Fool me twice, you won't get fooled again. The when Yota Tsuji was coming to the ring, you know, with his head bowed, you know, with the hat and whatnot. I was like, wait a second, that's not Yota Tsuji. Like I was literally sitting there saying, no shot. That's not Yota Tsuji. Doesn't look as beefy. That's not him, right? And I was right. Yota Tsuji, you know, just using a little guile to get one up on the House of Torture guys, and he's again, you know, the brother, they mentioned it again. He's a stuntman for, you know, in the movie industry or the entertainment industry at the very least. So, you know, it's still wild to me that this guy is not a performer. He's not a pro wrestler, but he's there taking bumps, you know, and he's selling. I'm like, all right, this, you know, I'm not saying like suddenly I want to see him wrestle, but you know, he can handle himself. He doesn't look like a complete goofball. There was a story nonetheless to this match. There was good stuff in this match where essentially the House of Torture were working the knee. They were working one of Yota Tsuji's knees, and that really was the through line here. So it wasn't just things being thrown around. It wasn't just like interference for interference sake. You know, most of the interference and the stuff that they were doing was to focus on Tsuji's knee. And Evil, when he decided to work, well, you know, he focused on that, locked in the sharpshooter or the darkness scorpion. You know, and Tsuji's knee is bothering him. I think he did a pretty good job selling that as well. And then, you know, there's a lot of interference, you know, like they drag out, they being the House of Torture, they drag back out Tsuji's brother to sort of, you know, I don't know, to distract Tsuji, and it kind of worked. But then Shingo ran out to sort of even the odds and like, no, this fucking shit is enough. There's low blows that are happening even by Tsuji, who does a stun dog millionaire and a Falcon Arrow on Evil. There's ref bumps. Look, you know, you kind of see how everything is going, but I thought Evil did a lot of good work in this match. I thought Tsuji did some solid work here as well. But, you know, there's so much nonsense here. You know, we're getting the powder to the face. We're getting the whiskey mist from Yoshinobu Kanemaru. You know, there's so much stuff going on, but you know, there's just so much going on. It's hard for me to get into, but what was good here was good. I like the finish, you know, the big definitive win by Tsuji, who did the knee strike, who did the Marlowe crash, and then did the Gene Blaster for the win. Look, let's go ahead and give it 3.5 stars. And I'm surprised myself, but I think it worked. I think it, you know, it was good stuff. I didn't expect Evil to win, and maybe I should. And you know, again, like I said, I think we got to go. I think we have to go harder on this and have Evil win some matches once in a while. Next, Callum Newman and Jeff Cobb defeated Hiromu Takahashi and Tetsuya Naito to become the new IWGP Tag Team titles champions. They won the titles. Look, man, there's just the first half of this match is just stuff happening and nothing really bad about it, but it's just like stuff happening. It's just really average. We get a couple of creative spots like Hiromu Takahashi crossbodying Jeff Cobb when he has Tetsuya Naito up for a tour of the islands, which I thought was good. Sequence of guys throwing big moves and I can't argue that the crowd's not getting into it. Callum Newman lands the Oz Cutter and the Firebolt, but Tetsuya Naito kicks out. Tour of the Islands into a Razor's Edge jumping knee combo by the United Empire guys. And the final stretch I thought was pretty exciting, but the rest, and then the Firebolt by Callum Newman on Naito gets the win. So this is like the first time that Newman actually pins Tetsuya Naito in a match. They've been having like a low-key singles rivalry, I guess. And so this was the big win for him. They're the new champions. Final stretch was exciting. The rest of the match was really kind of, I gave it 3 stars. And look, look here. I like Jeff Cobb enough, right? I really do like Jeff Cobb. But what was his plan here with the oh, you thought I was leaving? How take that, internet kind of thing. It's like, what kind of gotcha? Like, this was a very lame gotcha. Like, this was very lame because I don't remember who reported this first about Jeff Cobb being on the roster for WWE. Like, this was clearly Jeff Cobb leaking this information, right? This is clearly Jeff Cobb talking, right? And trying to plant a story so that people would get into it and talk about it and get, have this spread around. I talked about it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you hear the news and you're like, well, this is significant. It's, and then you don't hear much of it for a while. And then he's in the New Japan Cup and he wins in the New Japan Cup and he sticks around. And then he does this match here and he wins the titles, the tag team titles. I'm like, okay. So it at some point when he was winning his matches in the New Japan Cup, I was like, okay, something's fishy with the report. Like I immediately there started thinking, this doesn't seem quite right. This doesn't seem quite right. I don't think he has been signed with WWE. I think, everyone just stops talking about it, right? Everyone just stops talking about it because it's, no disrespect. Like I said, I like Jeff Cobb. But he's not like this world-shattering signing. It's not as if Tetsuya Naito was suddenly signed by WWE and then you're like, wow, okay, this is a big transaction. This is a big deal, That's a big jump for multiple reasons. Jeff Cobb, it's like, okay, Jeff Cobb's on the roster. Okay, cool. Everyone was sort of wishing him well, going, all right, on your way then. Good luck. Thank you for your service here in New Japan. Everyone was sort of like just shrugging their shoulders and saying to each other, well, all right, it's fine. Fine. Turns out, he was hoping this story would gain more traction, or at least in his mind, he thought it got a lot of traction because when he was on when he grabbed the microphone, off of commentary and started saying, oh yeah, checkmate internet or whatever. I'm like, what? Well, no one at this point really believes you're going, Jeff. Like, I think we all sort of shrugged our shoulders like, well, I think a lot of us were just like, no, he's probably not going anymore. Like, he probably just threw that out there for multiple reasons, whatever reasons, leverage, just to get his name out there, and he saw this as like this grand coup, right? Like, if he's going around planting stories, right? And he was the only guy who was really talking about it, in his post-match promos and stuff like that. Like, everyone had sort of like given up on the story. Like, it wasn't the talk of the town that I think he in his brain thought it was. And then he goes, yeah, and then, haha, gotcha. I just stuck it to the internet. Alan Forel had a really good comparison. He compared this to the Eric Bischoff Sid thing, as, Cobb is saying over and over, haha, eat shit, internet. I got you. Got him, Like, okay, that's fine. I don't know it. Whatever. I just thought it was a little. I thought it was a little awkward. Dare I say, cringe? I don't know. I don't know what the big gotcha was, but congratulations on winning the titles with Callum Newman, who I still don't. I don't get it. I really don't. Konosuke Takeshita retained the never openweight title against Ryohei Oiwa in a phenomenal match. My God, like this was the match I was most looking forward to on the card, and it delivered exactly what I needed. Just physicality, big moves, and smartly put together, right? And a nice showcase of Oiwa's work, right? On the preview, I mentioned that I felt like Oiwa's work shined more in Noah than it does now in New Japan. And I don't know why exactly, but he had the opportunity and the opponent to really be able to dig deep, try some stuff out. And boy, oh boy, this ruled. This was absolutely tremendous. I loved it so much. I thought it was a tremendous match. I love the spot where Oiwa has Takeshita in a, I guess like some kind of scissor hold, arm scissor or whatever. Not a scissor hold, but some kind of arm lock or whatever. And Takeshita arm drags him over to try and get him to release the hold, but Oiwa doesn't. There's this great spot I loved where Oiwa had Takeshita in an arm lock, a scissor, whatever. But he's got him in this arm lock, and Takeshita, to get out of it, picks him up, scoops him, and slams him down. But Oiwa doesn't let go. Instead, arm dragging, he holds onto the hold, so that arm drags Takeshita down, and Oiwa stays in control. It's just like a perfect snap. Like, it's just such great execution. And we have superplexes, we've got Germans, we've got exploders, we've got flying knees, rolling deadlift Germans by Takeshita. We're getting the hits and then some. I believe this is Ryohei Oiwa's best New Japan match since he's come back from excursion. And that's what I was expecting out of this match. And that's what we got. And it's crazy to me that we're focusing on Shota Umino still to get the job done or, do whatever. And that kid is right there. And he's hungry. And he's got the charisma. And he's got the fire. And he's got the talent. Like, this is a guy whose ceiling is so high. Why are we wasting our time on other dudes who are schlubs, essentially? I mean, maybe this is the start of the push, right? This could be it. We never know. We never know until the G1 happens. We never know until the G1 happens what Gato's master plan is for his promotion, but we're going to get there. And this was tremendous. And I loved it so fucking much. This match was great. Takeshita, incapable of having a bad match. I'm going to give this 4.25 stars. He and Takeshita, of course, wins the match with a raging fire. The final stretch again was really good. I don't know what we're doing with Oiwa. I don't know why this guy's not being pushed to the moon. I really don't understand. The House of Torture trio of Ren Narita, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi retained their never openweight 6-man tag team title against the Bullet Club trio of Drilla Maloney, Gabe Kidd, and Taiji Ishimori. Look, this is a 2.5 star match. That's fine. It needn't be. It was short. I think that's its winning combination here. They brawl a lot into the audience, and basically this is all a setup for Sanada to come in and officially turn on the War Dogs and join the House of Torture side with his big red, Super Mario boots or whatever. 2.5 stars, but mercifully short. It told the story it had to tell. Let's move on. Shota Umino defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi. Look, I thought this was very good, a very, very good performance from 2025 Hiroshi Tanahashi. I haven't seen, on his retirement tour so far, I haven't seen him this dynamic, this good. There was clearly something he worked hard to do here, which I think is help get Shota Umino over. And it, the match was better for it. I don't know if Umino really went above and beyond here. I don't think he did. Am I seeing a renewed, reinvigorated Shota Umino? I am not necessarily, but he wasn't bad here. All the little gripes that I have with him were still present in this match, but I think Tanahashi did tremendous work, and Shota had a solid match, which was good. I enjoyed it. I thought this one was going to be one that I was just going to hand wave, easily, but turns out, no, I didn't. I gave this match 3.5 stars. I thought it was really good. Tanahashi hits the straight jacket German, a sling blade. He goes for the aces high, misses the high fly flow, of course. Running knee to the back of the head of Shota Umino, which was a really cool spot. And then he lands another to Tanahashi's face. Tanahashi fights back, but the second chapter lands, and Umino puts him away. It's good. It was good, and set up, for the rest of the main event angle later on, the main event call out, I guess. And just to be clear, I know that Umino is fighting Goto like at Windy City Riot this weekend, at Windy City Riot. So, this whole thing about Umino being put in a main event spot, maybe it's not meant to be as extensive as I imagine it, but nonetheless, he is still put in a top spot. He's still in a top spot. He's still doing these big top guy things. Even if it's just a one-off at Windy City Riot and that's the end of it, we're still doing this, right? Just wanted to make sure that was clear. Should have said that earlier, but I'm saying it now. The Great Okan defeated El Fantasmo to become the new New Japan World Television Champion. A good match. I thought this was pretty good. Early in the match, ELP does the springboard body press over the gate to the floor, which is always something that is completely bonkers. Great Okan body slams him onto the rail, which was a nice little spot. Great Okan makes a structure with some chairs, and he works ELP's shoulder, which is also significant in the match. That's going to be a story in the match here. He already came in with the shoulder being a little weakened. ELP avoids an eliminator and lands a swing DDT. They trade some blows. He lands the UFO and the CR2, but we're not putting Great Okan away. There's some shenanigans on the floor. Great Okan drives El Fantasmo through the chair structure, and basically ELP cannot beat the 10 count to get back into the ring. The 20 count, I should say, excuse me. He can't beat the 20 count. And essentially, Great Okan wins the title via countout, which is a thing in New Japan. That is something that a title can change on a countout. And that's exactly what happened. So Great Okan wins the title. I enjoyed ELP's little run. I think he had a nice little run. Nothing out of the ordinary, but nothing bad. I thought it was pretty good. Great Okan, look, we're going to have to see how that develops, because there's there's times where Great Okan hits the ring and he's motivated and he's into it, and then you see all the great things about Great Okan, where it's like, okay, these are all the things that make him special. But he's oftentimes hit and miss, and he hit on this match. Is he going to hit elsewhere? Tune in to find out, I guess. I don't know. 3.25 star for me. And finally, we had Yuya Uemura defeating Sanada in the opener of the show. I really don't have many notes. However, this was a 10-minute match, just a little over 10 minutes. And I thought this was very good. and I'm aware that this is a Sonata match, but I think that the fact that the match was relatively short and that both guys had their working boots on and Yumera was ready to go, I think that it helped the structure of the match. It felt more, it felt like it had a fast pace and kept Sonata from falling into his worst habits, where he oftentimes will do things that are very, that get stretched out too long, that are maybe a little boring. The longer a match goes in a Sonata match, the worse it has a tendency to be. I think this kept him from getting into those bad habits. I thought this was really good. I thought Yumera looked great. All I'm hoping moving forward now is that this Yumera Sonata stuff can be pushed aside, set away. Let's not talk about this again, kind of thing. We don't have to ever revisit this, and that'll be fine. Yumera was very good and looked like a champ. And again, forgot to mention that Yumera did come to challenge Yota Tsuji, just as Yota Tsuji was about to challenge him for the global title. So that's something I can sink my teeth into. Then I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And Yumera looked great here as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good to come out of this. Yumera looked good. I enjoyed this match. 3.5 stars if you want to believe that. So there you go. That should wrap up the review of this show. So again, like, as you can tell, I like this show. I thought this was good. Great show. No, good. Absolutely. Absolutely watch the main event and Takeshita versus Oiwa. Those are your must-see matches, I would say. If you've got a little more time on your hands, watch Yumera versus Sonata. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it. Shota Umino and Tanahashi as well, I thought was pretty good. Yeah, got a little more time on your hands, but I highly recommend the main event and the Never Openweight match. There you go. That about does it for the review of Sakura Genesis 2025. And we are going to end it right here. Well, at least for this episode of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. We're done. Thank you very much for listening, for watching. I appreciate it tremendously. Don't forget 5-star reviews, 5-star ratings, and likes on YouTube channels. Help out tremendously. They really do. Don't forget, I will be back on Thursday for the Dynamite review, the weekly Dynamite review, and more live streaming. Of course, the Dynamite review will be available on all platforms, whereas the streaming happens on YouTube. So come and join the streaming. It's always a good time. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. You will never miss a thing then. You will always get all the Warren Hayes content you ever dreamt of having. Don't you want that? Don't you want a little bit more Warren Hayes in your life? Subscribe. Follow me on your podcast apps. It's tremendous. And I will bid you adieu, but that's someone else's gimmick. Thank you very much once again. Go watch Randy Orton and get back to me, and I'll see you next time.